In this video, what we want to do is we are going to go through type 4 factorization, which is factorized by grouping. So now factorized by grouping is similar to type 1, whereby we need to take out a common factor, except here, instead of considering the whole expression, we are going to divide the terms of the expression so that we factorize maybe the first two together and we factorize the last two together. That's what we are going to do here. So it's similar to type 1, whereby you need to take out a common factor, except over here we need to group the terms that we want to factorize. So usually the rule here is that you want to group the terms that has or that have the most things alike, right? So the terms that have the most things alike, you want to group them. So in this video, we are going to look at a few examples. The first examples, we have this expression of ours given here, px plus ky plus px plus ky. So now this, we can factorize it by grouping, but it's just an example whereby we just want to notice that these are like terms and these are like terms. So we can just deal with the like terms together here. So that's the way we do this one. We say that this plus that is going to give us 2px, and these two are adding to give us 2ky. Now we have two terms and they have something in common, which is the 2. So you take out a common factor of 2 and we're going to have px plus ky. So in this example, we just revised adding like terms and taking out a common factor. So we have two terms and we took out a common factor, which was just 2. Now let's move on to question number 2 over here. So in question number 2, we have these many terms, and what I will say is that, well, this I need to factorize by grouping, and I'm going to take the first two terms, make them my first group, and I'm going to take the rest of this expression, the next two terms, make them my other group. So I'm going to start factorizing or taking out a common factor, looking at the first two terms. So I'm going to say between these two terms, the highest common factor there is x to the power of 3. Then I'm going to open my bracket saying that if I take, it's x to the power of 2. Right, x to the power of 2. So if I take out an x to the power of 2 in the first term, you're going to get x that is left. And then if you take out an x to the power of 2 in the second term, you're going to get a minus 2 that is left. So I just now factorize this part of the expression just as normal as doing type 1. Now, what's very important is that I want you to separate your groups using the plus sign. So now that I'm going to factorize the green group, I'm just going to put a plus here. So I'll put the plus because I don't want to make any sign mistakes. And as you get better, you'll understand why the plus is there. Right, now I'm going to factorize the green group, and I'm going to say, well, the highest common factor here is 2. So I'll take out a 2. Then I'll say, what is left in this term when this 2 is gone? I have a minus x and I have a plus 2. Right, so now I was able to factorize this number 2 using factorize by grouping. And as you can see here, we took the first two terms, factorized them. We took the last two terms, factorized them. This is called factorized by grouping. Now we have two terms that are left, and these brackets look like they have something in common, except these signs are swapped around. So when signs are swapped around, you must remember to take out a negative. So I'm going to take out a negative here. So I'll say x squared bracket x minus 2. I take out a negative for the second term, change the plus sign to a minus, change this to a positive, change this to a negative. So remember, that's how we take out a negative. Now we notice that these are going to have something in common. So I say this x minus 2 bracket is in common, and I'm left with an x squared minus 2. And that's how you factorize this one. Let's take a look at example number 3. Example number 3 is just to showcase that you can choose the terms that you want to factorize. So in this situation here, I noticed that these first two terms have nothing in common, while these last two have nothing in common. But I know that does have in common, and by choosing those to be my first group, I will take these to be the other group, right? So I'm going to start factorizing the green group now. I'll say the common factor here is going to be a. Then I'll be left with, if you take out an a here, you're left with 1. So it's a 1. Then I say plus, if you took out an a there, you're going to be left with a b. Now I'm done factorizing the green group. I put a plus sign here. Now I want to factorize the yellow group, and as you can see, I really don't have anything in common. So I'll just say, well, this is just the minus b and the minus 1. That's what I have. Now I notice that I have two terms and they have these brackets that wants to be like terms or something in common. So then what I want to do is take out a negative for the second term, because if the signs are swapped, you want to just take out a negative to make the signs the same. So I'm going to say this is a bracket 1 plus b. Take out a negative to get minus bracket b plus 1. So you're just changing this sign, that sign, that sign. Now we have that the brackets are the same. It all has to do with the sign, not the order of which you wrote these. So we started with the 1 plus b here, and here I have a b plus 1. These brackets are exactly the same. It doesn't matter which order. What matters is the signs. The signs are the same. So I'm going to factor out a bracket. I can say 1 plus b, but I would like to say b plus 1 is my common factor. Then if I took that out, I'll be left with an a. If I took that out, I'll be left with a minus 1. Again, factorize by grouping. Right, now let's factorize this together. I will first evaluate what's going on here. We have 6a squared px, then I have a number minus 4, ap squared y, and I have a a squared py, and I have a ap squared x. So when I look at this, I feel like this term and that term have more things in common, while these have more things in common. So I will choose my first group to be these two terms, and I will choose my other group to be these two terms. So now let's factorize. Take out a common factor for the yellow group. So for the yellow group, I check the numbers. They have a highest common factor of 6. I check the a's. We have a a squared that is in common. I check the p's. We have a p in common. And we open the bracket and say that, well, I just removed everything here. I removed everything here. I will just have an x minus y that will be left. Now I'll separate the groups by a plus. Now say for those green groups, I'll have a 4 in common, they have an a in common, they have a p squared in common. Now if I just took out all of that, I'll be left in the first, well, this group, in this term, I'll have a minus y and I have a plus x. Now again, we say we have two terms and these brackets are actually swapped. These brackets are actually the same. The signs are exactly the same. So this is a minus y and a minus y, a positive x and a positive x. So these groups or these two terms now, they have something in common. And that's something in common. It's not only the brackets. You have to first start checking. Are these numbers in common? They have numbers in common, which is the highest common factor of 2. So they have a 2 in common. Remember, the 6 can be rewritten as 2 times 3, yeah? And the 4 can be rewritten as 2 times 2. So let me just let's remove some of these things here. Okay. So I'll say the highest common factor between these two terms, it has to do with the numbers, which is 2. It has to do with the a's, which is just a single a that is in common. It has to do with the p's, which is just a p that is in common. And it has to do with these brackets. So I'll say the bracket x minus y is also in common. So this is our common factor here. Be very careful to not only be trapped in thinking the brackets are the only highest common factor. Everything in this term, you must check for everything in your two terms that are in common and make sure that you write them as your common factor. Right, so in this first term, if you took out the 2 from the 6, you're going to be left with a 3. If you took out the a from the a squared, you're going to be left with just 1a. If you took out the p, then it will be gone. If you took out the bracket, then it's gone. So you're left with 3a in your first term. In your second term, if you took out the 2 from the 4, you're going to have a 2 left. And you took out the a, but then you took out 1p. So you have 2p and that bracket is gone as well. So this is how you factorize by grouping, and then you go back to doing just normal factorization from type 1.